And finally, new rule, Republicans have to be honest about who these days is more deranged. They love to invoke Trump derangement syndrome, and there is some of that, but Trump really is doing things when it comes to ignoring court orders and using the Justice Department for partisan goals and deploying the military domestically that no one ever came close to doing before, so I don't feel especially deranged calling that out. But having your press secretary say that the Democratic Party's main constituency is made up of Hamas terrorists, illegal aliens, and violent criminals, that's deranged.
During the most recent episode of Real Time with Bill Maher, Maher dedicated his new rule-ending monologue to calling out Trump MAGA Republican politicians like Mike Johnson and Trump Press Secretary Karolin Leavitt for their hypocrisy and their pearl-clutching regarding extremism on the left, when at the same time, they, unlike the Democrats, empower the crazies on the right. This is an asymmetry that I call out quite a bit. And I appreciate Maher, who enjoys the sympathies of many on the right, many right-wingers and Republicans like Bill Maher. I appreciate that he's using that camaraderie or those sympathies to say, actually, no, the Democrats don't do what you do, and it's not TDS to call it out. But before we unpack all that, if you end up liking this video and you want to support the channel, please be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and alert bells before you go. All right, friends, we have several clips to play from this Real Time with Bill Maher segment. As you know, Maher is a mixed bag for me because I get really annoyed with his culture war takes. I think he is too sympathetic to playing the rights game when it comes to culture war issues. But one thing I've always said that I appreciate about him is that he has no problem calling out Trump and Republicans and dispensing with the false equivalence. He uses that phrase a lot. He calls Republicans out. No, that's a false equivalence. Democrats don't do this, or they don't do it as bad. And I appreciate that. It's one of the few centrists or cent people who identify as centrists or moderates who actually make that distinction. We're going to get into it all, but before we do, if I could quickly ask you to leave a like on this video, and if you haven't already, and you enjoy our channel, to hit that subscribe button, because it goes a long way in supporting our work. So I really appreciate the fact that he has not succumbed to the pressure that so many other enlightened centrists have done, which is to say, Donald Trump's not so bad, or, the Democrats and Republicans are just about the same. He has not fallen into that yet. Hopefully he never does. And so let's play some of the other segments from this, or clips from this new rule segment, to see him drive that point home.
But having your press secretary say that the Democratic Party's main constituency is made up of Hamas terrorists, illegal aliens, and violent criminals, that's deranged. Democrats...
It is deranged. Okay. So as you recall, we've done multiple videos about this. Trump's official spokesperson, the person who speaks on behalf of Donald Trump in the Trump administration, probably the second most visible person in the Trump administration as far as the media is concerned. She did the, remember when about 10 years ago, Republicans complained about the Hillary Clinton quote about the basket of deplorables, or in a private event, Hillary Clinton, who was not in government at the time, she was a former Secretary of State. She was the Democratic front runner, but she was like, listen, if you want to get really reductive, and she said that if you want to get really reductive, you can probably put half of Trump supporters into what I call a basket of deplorables. And 10 years later, the right still bitches about that, even though, again, she wasn't a government official and she didn't say all Trump supporters. She just said half, and she admitted that's getting really reductive. Well, you have the official Trump spokesperson, Karolin Leavitt, saying infinitely worse, saying that the Democratic Party's main constituency, that the people that actually support the Democratic Party, the people who comprise the Democratic Party, are pro-Hamas terrorists, violent criminals, and, it's just insane. It really is. That imagine a Democratic press secretary like Jen Psaki or Karine Jean-Pierre, both of whom work for President Biden, ever saying something like that. And one of the things I've been pleased by is that in this media landscape where it's so quick to blitz right through one Trump scandal into the next, it's really hard to give them all the enduring attention they deserve. This particular scandal has not gone away, and it's contributed, I think, to a public spiraling by Karolin Leavitt, which we've also discussed in recent videos, as she's getting called out by Hakeem Jeffries and then clutching her pearls on Fox News. Hakeem Jeffries needs to stop calling me names. It's like, no fuck you. You call everyone you don't like names. And again, if you can dish it out, you should be prepared to take it. If you can't take it, then don't dish it out. So again, I appreciate Bill Maher, who again, has, at times very often, been too easily susceptible to right-wing framing of culture war issues. He is not letting this go, and I really appreciate that. Let's play another clip here again. The whole new rule segment is about 7 minutes and 30 seconds. We can't play it all. But here's another clip.
Okay. Now, are there dumb, college-age, useful idiots who march for Hamas? Yes, that exists. As does Democrats who stupidly enabled way too many migrants to enter the country. But that is a far cry from the main constituency of the party being terrorists or being illegal aliens. And violent criminals? Well, 7 million people came out last weekend for the big protest, and there was no violence. But there was a lot on January 6th.
I appreciate that too. Right. So remember the No Kings protest that was nationwide, between 2,600 and 3,000 separate demonstrations nationwide. It was bigger than the June 14th new No Kings protest. Okay. About 2 million more people, 7 million people total, and it was exceptionally peaceful. Even Mike Johnson begrudgingly conceded that multiple times. Well, congratulations, I guess he said sarcastically, not burning anything down or killing anybody when he said and suggested the entire time that it was going to be a violent spectacle, and we proved him wrong. Meanwhile, a much more local, much smaller scale, and therefore much more controllable protest. January 6th became a violent insurrection against the federal government and an attempt by Donald Trump at a self-coup so he could unlawfully remain in power. And that just goes to show the contrast. It also says something that Republican politicians feel so comfortable demonizing this idea. No kings, no kings. That's anti-American. No, that is fundamentally American. And if you support Donald Trump or any president, Democrat or Republican, being a de facto king, you are anti-America. You are unpatriotic. And you should be relentlessly called out for your bullshit, authoritarian, cultish, monarchist ways. If you want a monarch that badly, go back to England. Go back to Great Britain. They still have a monarch. We don't have monarchs here in America, despite MAGA's best attempts to make Trump one. And we should continue to peacefully but patriotically and loudly resist it. One last clip.
So yes, each side has its crazies, and I'll grant you, at least the right has found a place for theirs. Unfortunately, that place is elected government. It should not be the case that the White House press spokesperson sounds exactly like the worst Karen at Dollar General. But she does.
Exactly. That's the difference. And that's the one I want to close on, right? So we talk about this all the time. This has been a bugbear of mine and a theme of mine ever since I entered, public-facing political commentary. When people say, well, the left has its extremists, the Democrats have their outliers. That's true. No mass social or political movement comprised of tens of millions of people, which is what political parties are going to be bereft of crazy people or outliers or extremists. It's inevitable. The only question, there's a couple of questions. How many as a percentage and raw number? How many extremists and outliers do you have in this movement? And to what extent are their views reflected in the leadership, the thought, the spiritual, the political leadership of the movement? And do the spiritual thought and political leaders of a movement condemn the outliers? Well, we see that on the Democratic side, there is no Democratic equivalent to Lauren Boebert or Marjorie Taylor Greene or Matt Gaetz, or Ted Cruz, or who I like. There's just not like that. There is no, Tim Burchett or Randy Fine in the Democratic Party. The Democratic Party's crazies do not wield power. And to the extent you want to get super liberal, pun intended, and saw and call AOC crazy, she's not. And she certainly has never said anything approaching the things that Marjorie Taylor Greene has said about the Democratic Party. AOC has never said anything like that, or advocated anything like that for the Republican Party. Marjorie Taylor Greene has openly called the Democratic Party an evil, violent party of groomers and pedophiles. She said that publicly. AOC has never said such things about the Republican Party despite their many faults. So Bill Maher is right. The difference is, One of the biggest differences is the Republican Party takes their crazies and promotes them, elevates them, gives them state and political power. Like even the tech scandal that we saw about, the young Republicans, the members of the young Republicans, talking about how much they love Hitler and all these things. Those were Republican leaders. And some of them were not just Republican leaders, but they actually worked and wielded power in state, local, and federal government. You just don't see comparable things, and certainly not in the same numbers on the Democratic side. And I'm sorry, this is a meaningful distinction. This is why the Democratic Party on its worst day, and it has many bad days, is better for this country than the Republican Party on its very best. So, I appreciate Bill Maher pointing that out again. Debunking the false equivalence. I'm sure many of his right-wing friends or frenemies or acquaintances will not be happy to hear what he had to say, but what he said here was pretty much 100% spot on. If you want to support that, as always, you can hit that subscribe button, leave a like on this video. If you stuck around to the end, drop a blue heart in the comments. Keep on fighting. Do not let them silence you, and until next time, I'll see you soon.